All right, welcome everybody. Shane Carter here with Eddie Austin on our webcast. Today we are going to be talking about a very interesting topic, one that's near and dear to my heart. I'm excited about it. Land development.
Yeah. So, this morning I was scrolling through LinkedIn and I was reading a few posts, and somebody had put on there, land development, land entitlement, and they were advertising some pretty healthy returns. And I sent that text to you, and that kind of spurred us into geeking out about this today on our podcast. But, it's true. These returns are achievable. So I just wanted to dive in and really get into it and have you really tell us all the way through that. Because, we've touched on it through general conversations over dinners and lunches and stuff like that. But let's put it all together. So first and foremost, you've been doing this a long time, but tell us about your background, how you got into, this land entitlement, land development opportunity.
Sure. Yeah. So, my story starts, some 20 plus years ago now. And really I started, flipping houses and being a general contractor, being a home builder. Renovating houses, renovating properties, doing it on my own, doing it as a service for others, building custom homes for folks, et cetera, et cetera. And it was in that process of being involved in, taking raw land and building homes on it, taking existing homes and renovating them, that a surveyor friend of mine on a property that I had purchased to flip, I was going to rehab the house and sell it for a profit. And he said, "Hey Shane, we could probably get another lot here. It's got the acreage and it's got the frontage, and we could subdivide this existing house. All the setbacks work, and we could create a whole new lot here." And I was like, "Yes, let's do that. Let's absolutely do that." And so, I subdivided that lot and learned a lot through the process. Built a spec home on that lot. Rehabbed and sold the flip home, and just skyrocketed my returns, obviously, on that one particular deal. But I just became fascinated with the process of creation in terms of land development. And so, then the next one I did was a 3-lot subdivision, and then I did 7, and then 16, and so on and so forth. And it just really got very interested in the process of how to take raw land and transform it into an actual subdivision or a community of homes. And that parlayed, of course, into townhomes and mixed-use projects and such. But that's my background. Been doing it a long time, and just absolutely love that entire process.
Yeah. So, let's just roll right into a track record. How many successful, or, what do you want to touch on there? I know the guy online, he was advertising a track record, but, that's, of course, hard to say whether it's true or false. But, go into your track record of what you've done and successfully.
Yeah, we've done it successfully, probably close to a dozen times. I can list it all out and send that off to folks that are interested, of course, with the exact properties and names and addresses and such. But yeah, we've done it enough times to really know the ins and outs of it. Had 95% of our projects were highly successful. One project stands out where I lost some money, and that was my personal project. Obviously, no one else's money was involved, so didn't lose any investors' money, but I lost some of my own money, and that was a heck of a learning experience. We can talk about that a little bit more later too. But yeah, like I said, for 20 plus years now, I've been doing it and averaging about one every other year, just with the amount of business that I had in building custom homes and building houses for others and doing community work. These things take a long time. That's the other thing, right? I was mostly doing it up here in New England, where it takes anywhere from 12 to 24 months to get something approved. And so if you're not constantly doing it, these things have a real long runway to get from, raw land to fully shovel ready project. And at first my bandwidth for doing those types of things wasn't really big. So I didn't do but one every 2-3 years. And then later here in my career, as I've gotten away from doing more of the active bricks and sticks side and doing more of the land development side, of course, we've amplified that and really ramped up what we're doing currently and what we've done in the last few years, so that we're on pace to do closer to about 6 this year alone. And our goal is to get to double that, to do 12 a year, to have an average of about 1 per month coming through our cycle.
And we're doing that in multiple states.
We're doing that in Florida and Texas and the Carolinas, both north and south, as well as continuing up here in New England.
That is awesome. So a little bit, you talked about how long you've been doing this. Let's talk about, what are the downsides? Is there any downsides? What would be?
Yeah. Oh, there are downsides. And so, well, I mean, look, I told you I lost well over $100,000 on a deal that I wasn't, fully invested in myself, no other investors. And that taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about how to structure the deals. What I learned was I could have structured it better. I could have given myself better protections relative to, the seller being able to yank it away from me and sell it to somebody else who was going to show up in it with a different proposal in their pocket. And COVID happened, and we got a lot of pushback from the town, and I could blame all kinds of things. The reality is, what I learned, however, was to have better protections in my contracts. And so I know that I'm protected because I put all my money up first. We don't take any investor money into deals until we are through due diligence and we've vetted everything. So let me just run you through that real quick in terms of how we mitigate risk or greatly diminish risk, which is number one. Let's talk about what the process is. We take raw land and we get zoning approvals to have it entitled or what you're allowed to do on the property be a legally binding approval from a granting authority, whether that's the municipality, the city, the county, or otherwise. There's a formal process to, say, take a 20-acre piece of land and get it formally approved to build a 240-unit multifamily development project, for example. And so, in order to do that, you need a survey. You need generally test pits and geotech studies. You need water mitigation plans, water management plans. You need wetland delineations and topographies, and sometimes even fiscal impact and traffic studies and feasibility studies, and all sorts of due diligence work that costs all the money up front to ensure that you have a viable project and to ensure that you have the zoning in place and the density in place for what you want to do. The biggest one, the things we do right off the bat, availability of water, sewer, and electrical infrastructure, right? Those are the main 3 things that we look for right off the bat. Where are those located? Do you have the capacity to service the site and at the density that we want to achieve? And we really mitigate a lot of the risks in the project by ensuring that we have those access to water, sewer, electrical infrastructure, and that we have the zoning in place for the density. Then it's essentially a matter of right at that point. And then it's just a matter of ensuring that you have the parking and the landscaping plan and the lighting plan and the massing and sizing of the structures and the height restrictions. And you just are checking all the boxes down the checklist of the site plan regulations to ensure that you have a viable plan that can be approved. And once you've done this, a handful of times, you really know the process very, very well, forward and backward, such that by the end of due diligence, when sort of my money goes hard with the seller, I've already checked all those boxes, and I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that I have a by right approval coming to me. It's just going through the process of getting those formal approvals in place.
Right.
The other risk, sorry, Eddie, the other big risk that we mitigate up front and that we take a lot of time to is, how do we monetize these projects? So we get them approved, we get them shovel ready. There's an increase in value in that process from taking it from raw dirt to fully approved. But then if we don't sell that project to someone else, in other words, we're not developing it, we're not building the roads, some projects and in the future, sure. But right now, we're not putting in the roads, we're not building the houses, we're not the end developer of that project. We are just selling those shovel-ready permits and approvals to somebody else to do. So that's another big risk in the process is who's buying that development from you and at what price. And is this a marketable location? Is this a viable product type at that location? And who's interested in buying it? And so that's another big risk on the backside, right? After we've spent all this money, after we've taken 12, 18, 24 months sometimes to get it approved, if you don't have a buyer, then it's all for naught, and you're not going to monetize it, right? So what do? We have, first of all, we have great regional relationships with builders. We have relationships direct with the national builders, home builders for single family lots. And then, we know a lot of players as well in the multifamily circuit as well. Sometimes a circus, but
sometimes it is a circus.
The multifamily business as well. We have a lot of contacts for folks who want, ground up development projects. But what we do in addition to that is we go to land development specialist brokerage firms, and we get what's called a BOV, broker opinion of value. And we have them vet it and say, hey, you're going to be the one marketing this piece of land for us. Talk to us about the location. Talk to us about the product type. What's the desirability? And we do that way up front before we get even close to the end of the due diligence process. So that by the end of, in the due diligence process, we know what that broker opinion of value is for the finished product. We know who the likely buyers are. We know the desirability of that product type at that location, and there's no 100% surety, of course, in anything we do, but we have a really strong feel for how's this thing going to sell through, and what kind of competition and marketing, and what's their opinion of value, right? They give us a range, and we always take the lowest point of that range and say, is this still a viable project? At that lowest point of the range, does this project make sense? If yes, we'll proceed. If no, we drop it right then and there.
Mm-hmm. Makes perfect sense. I was going to say, it sounds like probably a newbie mistake would be not knowing your underground utilities and their capacity. And then, you're planning a 240 unit multifamily apartment building, and the structure can't handle that. The underground structure can't handle it. So you're essentially building something that's never going to live there until you get the city to approve, completely upsizing all that stuff. And that's probably not an easy task.
Well, sure. But what the city would say is, yeah, you can build a 240 unit project there, but you got to upgrade, 1,400 linear feet of sewer main, from 6-inch to 10-inch. Yeah. Well, now that just killed your project and makes it financially, not viable. Right. So yeah, you have to know all that right up front. Proximity of water, sewer, infrastructure, and capacity to bring in that additional load. That's critical. Absolutely critical.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been great going through this and just learning so much more about it. And one of the most exciting things for me is this is one of the things we've added to this new fund we're getting ready to launch. Mm-hmm. And this is a part of the fund that, we're going to allocate 5-10% of our capital raise for these opportunities. And it should really boost returns because of the knowledge that we have it on the team and the amount of projects that we're doing right now, essentially with our own money. And we've learned it. We've vetted the process. It's working well. There's a pretty good, assumption that it's going to be a win-win for our investors moving forward. We've mitigated almost all of the risk. We have a great deal of education and track record history on what we've done. So it's essentially adding something in we have a track record for. And I'm excited about it. I think our investors, when they see the anticipated returns, will be very excited as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to add in, I kind of mentioned it before, but I think it bears repeating because, as an investor myself, I think it's important to know that, not only do I put my own money in. So in other words, most of my net worth is in real estate, right? Whether it's holdings or assets or otherwise. But where I actively invest a lot of my sort of liquid cash or investable cash is actually in deals like this, right? Mm-hmm. And so for any deals that where we're taking in investor dollars, I did say this before, but I want to reiterate it. I use my money first. We put our money up first, and generally speaking, that money is as much or more than the investor capital that we bring in, right? So let's say a project is going to take $200,000 to get it across the finish line from A to Z with all those studies and surveys and wetland delineations and everything I mentioned before. The first 100K is usually my money going in, right? And it's mine, and it's my money that goes in at the due diligence period, the deposits, all those initial studies, all that initial. So if we get to the end of due diligence and we got to kill the deal, I'm the only one who lost money, right?
Right.
Not the investors. Again, we don't take investor money in until we've essentially secured that we have mitigated all of the risks that we can possibly mitigate, and we feel like this is an intelligent investment to move forward with and keep spending money on and bring down the road. And so I think that's important, that this is something that I personally invest in with my own money. I'm extremely active in it. We're extremely active in it. And I wouldn't really take any, we have friends and family money in it too, right? So that's another important thing. We people that I share dinner with at Thanksgiving invest in these deals with us. And so, so it's important for folks to know that that's the type of investment you're making when your money gets used in these types of investments. And that's why we included it in the fund, because we're so confident in our ability to perform there. And even though it's a smaller capacity or amount in our fund, my track record is giving 50% average annual returns, right, to investors for doing this type of investment. Yeah, it seems implausible. It seems unheard of. It seems like that's too good to be true. But I think when people understand that, we know the process from A to Z, and it's a highly specialized skill set, a highly specialized knowledge base, and we sit in a really interesting spot in the ecosystem. We didn't really talk about that, but these end developers, right, whether it's for the multifamily or the Lennar, Centex, Taylor Morrison, D.R. Hortons of the world, publicly traded firms, they do this work. Sure, they have folks in-house that do entitlements, but why do they buy from us? A couple of reasons. Number one, it eliminates risk, right? We're taking this sort of risk off the table by delivering them a shovel-ready project, and our business proposition to them is, we'll deliver it to you for at or below, the price you would have been into it for had you done it yourself. Number two, we just save them all that bandwidth, right? That entire 12, 18, 24-month process, they didn't have to do it. We did it. Number three, it keeps it off their books, which in this day and age right now, capital markets conditions we're in, that's important to these firms, that it stays off their balance sheet, it stays off their books until it's ready to monetize. They can go in, they can break ground and go. And that's where that sort of velocity of capital can happen for them. So they keep it off their books right until they can monetize and get into that development cycle faster. So It's a really important little niche that we sit in. Not a lot of people do it. And frankly, if I didn't understand how to build roads and do infrastructure, and if I hadn't done all that myself, it would be a little scary and unnerving in terms of, how to break into this business and how to do it properly. And that's why so many folks don't get into this business, because it is such a highly specialized skill set.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited, and it's been a blast today going over all this stuff, and I've learned a lot. I think our listeners will have learned a lot. And, always, guys, if you see a video that, catches your attention, or you want something a little bit more in depth, by all means, reach out to us, comment below, and get a hold of us. We're interested in doing more videos like this and going in depth in certain sectors of what we talk about. So if you have that, need that you want to hear more, reach out, but first, like and subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and make sure you smash that little notification bell so you always stay up to date. And we put these things out at the same time every week. And all types of classes. We've done anything from guiding principles from our website. We've done our beliefs, our time blocking. We've done multifamily, fund structure, all types of real estate, underwriting. We did 3 parts on underwriting multifamily.
With our man, Nick. That's right.
Yeah. And it was great. We got those online. So anytime you guys want to see something more, you got to make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date.
That's right. All right, Eddie. Well, we'll see you on the next one. Appreciate it, buddy.
Absolutely. See you, my friend.